I'm making a vegetable tagine, Moroccan-inspired with spices and just an absolute medley of vegetables. And I pack this one with all sorts of nutritious vegetables. And I'll slowly start heating my pot with a little bit of olive oil. Start with onion and carrots, a common ingredient in anything slow cooked, just because they hold up through the cooking process. And I've peeled and diced up some sweet potatoes, but the mineral content in sweet potatoes, they're so good for you. And for complexity and flavor, some parsnips, which I'll chop up. And parsnips look very much like a carrot, and they cook in about the same time, but an altogether different taste, very much reminiscent of a baker's cupboard. You know when you open your baker's cupboard and you've got things like cinnamon and some raisins, nutmeg, clove. There's a gentle spice element, even a hint of vanilla in there. So this really sort of rounds out the flavors. This style of cutting where I roll and cut actually has a name, paysan or country cut. And it's a rough or rustic style of cutting your vegetables, but it means you can cut even pieces so that the vegetable cooks evenly. And I'm gonna start cooking these. Oh, wait, my celery root. And it truly is the root of a celery plant. You can actually see some of the celery shooting off here. This is where the celery stalk would grow from. And celery root itself has a milder taste, but a buttery sort of texture, so beautiful combination. So the easiest way to prepare a celery root, I make a flat side, and then I cut down the sides of the celery root. And then I do the same with the bottom half. Then cut away these outside wrinkles, as it were. I'll use about half of this. And you can eat celery root raw or cooked. It's great grated into a coleslaw, mixed with apples and little raisins, almost like a Waldorf. Here are all the veggies that I first want to sweat out. Just soften them slightly. And it's to bring them up to an even cooking point of the other vegetables I wish to add in. 3 cloves of garlic, just like when I was making ribs. The time spent cooking the vegetables will mellow out the flavor of the garlic. To go with the garlic, a little bit of ginger. Actually, quite a bit of it, about 2 tablespoons. And give the veggies another stir. After I add my liquids and bring them up to a simmer, I'll add my other vegetables, some cauliflower florets, drained chickpeas, and some diced eggplant. 1.5 cups worth. So my onions have turned a little bit translucent. All right, now it's time for the ginger and the garlic. I'll grate those in. And lots of that ginger. A lot of ginger, about 2 tablespoons. I want to add my spices. About a tablespoon of ground cumin and the same measure of coriander. And what really makes this vegetable stew Moroccan, about 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Works so beautifully with all of these savory spices. And so before I add the liquid, this gives a chance for the spices to toast up a little bit and coat all the vegetables. Oh, that smells fantastic. Now, I've got a warm vegetable stock that I just made. You can use things like carrot peelings, onion skins, the tops of peppers, corn cobs, mushrooms, just about anything can go into a vegetable stock. And a vegetable stock, I should say, only takes about an hour on the stove to really extract all the flavor and potential in those vegetables. You can even make this recipe using straight water. It's just as delicious. And I'm gonna add about 3 cups of the liquid, really just enough to just cover past the vegetables that are cooking. So I can add my diced eggplant, my fresh cauliflower florets. The last addition, a tin of cooked chickpeas that I've drained and rinsed, and adding the sort of nutty and creamy tasting chickpeas makes this a complete protein, so you can serve it as a vegetarian entree or simply as a side dish. which I know Michael will enjoy next to those ribs. Now, a traditional tagine actually doesn't refer to the stew itself, but the dish it's baked in. A traditional Moroccan tagine is a clay pot, and you actually put a ceramic cone lid on top of it. The steam actually collects at the top of the cone, condenses, and then drips down the side of the cone back into the stew so you don't lose a bit of moisture or flavor. This is a fabulous ingredient, pomegranate molasses, and it has a sweetness to it, adds a great color to your dish, just adding about 3 tablespoons. If you can't find pomegranate molasses, fancy molasses works just as well. I'm not going to add more liquid, even though the vegetables aren't completely covered at this point, only because the vegetables are gonna let out some liquid, and then everything will sort of settle down into its place. The last little bit of sweetness here, some chopped apricots and raisins. Nice little surprises as you take a bite of your stew.